an extraordinary moment in the Pacific Ocean. HMS Queen Elizabeth, the pride of the Royal Navy, suddenly found herself shadowed by a fleet of Chinese and Russian warships in contested waters. What happened next was both unexpected and could have had serious consequences for international relations. Today we'll dive into that dramatic encounter and unravel its implications. HMS Queen Elizabeth, the UK's flagship aircraft carrier, had been deployed to the Indo Pacific as part of its ongoing mission to support freedom of navigation and demonstrate Britain's unwavering commitment to its global allies. This deployment was crucial, especially with rising tensions in strategic regions like the South China Sea. The deployment was not only a show of force, but also a strong message of support to Britain's key allies, including the US, Japan, and Australia. The mighty aircraft carrier was at the heart of a powerful carrier strike group equipped with state-of-the-art F-35B Lightning II fighter jets and an entire array of naval assets such as destroyers, frigates, and supply ships. Together, these naval forces were conducting joint military exercises, emphasizing the UK's intent to play a pivotal role in maintaining peace and stability in one of the world's most strategically important areas. The South China Sea has long been a flashpoint in international relations, serving as a critical trade route where trillions, with a T, of dollars worth of goods pass annually. It is also a contested region riddled with multiple territorial disputes, primarily driven by China's aggressive and expansive claims over vast areas of waters. Ensuring the safety of these waters is also of the utmost importance for HMS Queen Elizabeth and her allies. However, this mission has also attracted significant attention and tension from rival forces. China's response to the deployment of HMS Queen Elizabeth and other Western naval forces in the Indo-Pacific was swift and assertive. Over the past few months, China has increased its naval operations, conducting large-scale military exercises in the South China Sea. These exercises were designed to showcase China's growing naval power and reinforce its claims over the disputed waters. The Chinese People's Liberation Army Navy, or PLAN, deployed warships, submarines, and even advanced anti-ship missiles within the aim of deterring foreign forces from operating in the region. The exercises reached a peak recently when China conducted live fire drills close to international waters, significantly escalating tensions in the area. These drills included simulated missile strikes and complex maneuvers, clearly intended to assert dominance and intimidate rival forces operating nearby. Russia, though geographically distant, has also been making its presence felt in the Indo-Pacific. In a gesture of military cooperation, Chinese and Russian naval forces conducted joint drills in the region, further complicating an already delicate situation. These drills, aptly named Maritime Cooperation, involved fleet coordination, anti-submarine warfare, and missile defense. Such joint activities underscored a deepening military partnership between China and Russia, with both nations appearing determined to challenge Western naval power in the Indo-Pacific. What do you think about this growing military cooperation between China and Russia? Could their alliance pose a bigger threat than we anticipate? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. It wasn't long before the inevitable happened. During one of the HMS Queen Elizabeth's patrols near the contested waters of the South China Sea, tensions finally came to a head. The massive aircraft carrier, carrying hundreds of crew members, suddenly found itself shadowed by several Chinese warships, including destroyers and frigates. Reports suggest that the Chinese vessels came uncomfortably close, maintaining a cautious yet assertive posture as they conducted close-in maneuvers around the British task force. This act was widely viewed as a direct challenge, testing the resolve of the UK and its allies. Although no shots were fired, the situation remained extremely tense, with both sides closely monitoring each other's every move. The UK's Ministry of Defence tried to downplay the incident, stating that HMS Queen Elizabeth was operating in accordance with international law. However, behind closed doors, military officials expressed growing concern about the increasing frequency of these encounters. The incident bore striking similarities to previous confrontations, where Chinese warships and fighter jets tested Western resolve and pushed the boundaries, inching closer to a potential conflict. The Indo Pacific is increasingly becoming a powder keg, where the presence of multiple naval forces only heightens the risk of unintended escalation. Chinese, Russian, British, and American warships operate within close proximity, creating a precarious environment in which even the slightest miscommunication could lead to disastrous consequences. One wrong move, an ambiguous signal, or an overly aggressive maneuver could ignite a dangerous confrontation. Military leaders from all sides have issued warnings about the inherent risks of such standoffs. Officials have repeatedly voiced concerns about the potential for unintended escalation, stressing how quickly a minor incident could spiral out of control in these tense and heavily militarized waters. As HMS Queen Elizabeth and other naval forces continue patrolling these contested regions, the specter of conflict remains ever present. The next encounter might just be one misstep away from a major international crisis. Do you think these ongoing tensions could escalate into something more serious? Share your thoughts in the comments down below. Now let's paint a picture of what exactly happened during that fateful day. Imagine this, if you will. HMS Queen Elizabeth is conducting routine operations in the Indo Pacific, sailing through international waters as part of a broader mission to ensure freedom of navigation. The weather is calm, the sun glistens off the surface of the sea, and the massive carrier glides smoothly, accompanied by its fleet of destroyers, frigates, and supply ships. The radar systems on board are always vigilant, monitoring the surrounding seas for any activity. But today, something different appears on the radar screens. Multiple contacts begin to appear. First a few, then several more. They're not friendly vessels. The radar operators quickly identify the approaching ships as Chinese warships, followed closely by Russian vessels. They're converging from various directions, getting uncomfortably close to the British task force, with some approaching from the front while others trail from behind. It's evident that this is more than routine patrolling. It's an orchestrated show of force. Within mere minutes, HMS Queen Elizabeth finds herself surrounded. Chinese destroyers, frigates, and even a few smaller corvettes have closed in on the British carrier group. To add to the complexity, Russian vessels, including a missile cruiser, have joined the formation and are shadowing the British ships. From the bridge of HMS Queen Elizabeth, the commanders can see the silhouettes of Chinese and Russian vessels on the horizon, coordinated in their movements, seemingly sending a clear message. It is abundantly clear that this is no accident. The positioning of the Chinese and Russian ships is deliberate, testing the Royal Navy's resolve. The surrounding vessels maintain an assertive posture, but are careful not to cross the line into outright confrontation. They haven't fired any weapons, but their close-in maneuvers and overwhelming numbers leave no doubt that their intentions are to intimidate. Communication lines between HMS Queen Elizabeth and the Chinese-Russian warships are opened, but the atmosphere remains tense. Standard naval protocols for avoiding collisions and maintaining safe distances are exchanged, but the responses are terse and formal. The British commanders issue warnings, reminding the opposing ships that they are in international waters and must adhere to safety protocols. The responses from the Chinese and Russian fleets are either minimal or non-committal, further heightening the tension. The atmosphere aboard HMS Queen Elizabeth is palpable. You can feel it. The ship's crew, men and women who have trained for years for moments like this, are on high alert. Every sailor understands the gravity of the situation. A single misstep, one error in judgment, could spark an international incident. The British commanders, seasoned veterans with experience in tense situations, remain calm but alert, considering all possible responses should the situation escalate. In response to the tightening encirclement, the British carrier group begins taking precautionary actions. HMS Queen Elizabeth launches several of its F-35B Lightning II jets from the flight deck. Powerful engines roar as the advanced fighter jets take to the skies, circling above the carrier in a display of strength. The sight of these cutting-edge jets bursting with sophisticated weaponry serves as a signal to the approaching ships HMS Queen Elizabeth and her strike group are ready for any eventuality. Below deck, the crew is busy making preparations for all possible contingencies. Weapon systems are placed on standby, and radar systems are focused and tracking the nearby vessel's every move. The British commanders know they must walk a fine line. Any sign of weakness could embolden the Chinese and Russian fleets, while any overreaction could easily tip the situation into a dangerous conflict. The tension on board the carrier is there. You can feel it in every pore. Sailors and officers alike are waiting, their eyes focused on their respective tasks, but their minds aware that the next move could determine the course of the day and possibly the next several years of military diplomacy in the region. While the F-35s circle overhead, the other ships in the British carrier strike group remain in tight formation. The destroyers and frigates take up defensive positions, ready to intercept any potential threats from surface vessels or aircraft. Meanwhile, nearby Allied ships from the United States and Japan, which are participating in joint military exercises, are also put on alert. Although these Allied ships are not directly involved, they begin repositioning closer to HMS Queen Elizabeth's location. If the situation deteriorates further, they stand ready to provide reinforcements, escalating this from a localized standoff to a broader confrontation involving multiple nations. Their presence serves as a crucial reminder to the Chinese and Russian forces that this is not merely a British operation. It is a collective effort involving numerous Allied forces. As tensions continue to rise, drones from both sides are launched into the skies. Unmanned reconnaissance planes zip through the air, collecting real-time data and feeding it back to their respective fleets. For the British commanders aboard HMS Queen Elizabeth, these drones provide crucial situational awareness, enabling them to monitor the exact positions and activities of the Chinese and Russian warships. But the increasing presence of drones also brings added risk. With so many aircraft and drones in close proximity, the chance of an unintended collision or miscommunication grows significantly. Any such misstep could ignite a chain reaction that no one wants. The British commanders know that maintaining composure is critical. Calm heads must prevail, even in the face of heightened provocations. At the same time, they must also be fully prepared to defend their ship if necessary. The balance between caution and readiness is a delicate one, and the stakes could not be higher. As the standoff continues, everyone aboard HMS Queen Elizabeth keeps their eyes fixed on the Chinese and Russian vessels. The next few minutes could go in either direction. Either the opposing ships decide to back down, or the tense balance tips into a crisis. In this scenario, diplomatic channels between the UK, NATO, China, and Russia are activated almost immediately after the standoff begins. Recognizing the high stakes and the potential for catastrophic miscalculation, back-channel negotiations are initiated. British officials work closely with their NATO allies and the United States, coordinating messages to de-escalate the situation. At the same time, Chinese and Russian diplomats communicate with their naval commanders, urging caution and restraint. Over the next few hours, tense radio communications between the fleets transitions into more measured dialogue. The British carrier strike group maintains a defensive posture, but pulls back slightly to avoid further provocation, while the Chinese and Russian vessels slowly begin to break formation. In the end, no shots are fired, and there are no close encounters. Just a high-stakes test of wills that is ultimately resolved through level-headed diplomacy. However, even though a direct confrontation is avoided, the incident leaves a lasting impact on future operations. Trust between the involved nations is further eroded, and NATO commanders suggest increasing the frequency and scale of joint military exercises in the Indo Pacific to ensure preparedness for future encounters. China and Russia, meanwhile, see the event as an opportunity to further assert their influence, framing their actions as necessary measures to defend regional interests. The episode fuels greater diplomatic discussions, but also leads to an increased military presence and surveillance in the region. In a more volatile outcome, things could have gone very differently. Imagine During the standoff, a Chinese vessel maneuvers dangerously close to one of the British destroyers escorting HMS Queen Elizabeth. A collision is narrowly avoided, but the proximity is enough to spark confusion and triggers alarms. In the high-stress environment, tensions boil over, leading to warning shots being fired by the British side to push the encroaching vessel back. The warning shots are met with an equally aggressive response from the Chinese warships, which promptly deploy nearby aircraft. HMS Queen Elizabeth responds in kind by launching additional fighter jets, resulting in a brief but intense aerial standoff. Although no missiles are fired, the threat remains palpable as both sides' fighter jets challenge each other in the skies, waiting for the other to make the first mistake. This incident, while lasting only minutes, has an immediate and severe diplomatic fallout. Now, before we explore the worst-case scenario, tell us what you think could have happened in this tense situation. Could diplomacy have averted a potential crisis? Or was a clash inevitable? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. In this absolute worst-case scenario, the standoff escalates into full-scale military conflict. The encirclement of HMS Queen Elizabeth tightens, and both Chinese and Russian fleets become increasingly aggressive. A sudden incident, perhaps an accidental collision or a misfired shot, triggers an immediate and decisive military response. Within mere moments, naval forces from both sides are exchanging fire, and what started as a standoff quickly spirals into open combat. The skies over the South China Sea become a chaotic battleground, with fighter jets from HMS Queen Elizabeth strike group clashing with Chinese and Russian aircraft. The naval forces exchange missile strikes, air defense systems are activated, and casualties are sustained on both sides. The conflict rapidly draws in nearby NATO forces, as well as the United States and Japan, who dispatch reinforcements to support the British carrier group. China, in turn, calls on its regional allies and Russia to assist in the fight. The implications of such a conflict are severe. It could easily escalate into a broader confrontation involving numerous nations, including Australia, India, and other Southeast Asian countries. NATO would likely activate its collective defense mechanisms, involving its European and North American members. The UK would receive full military support, but the scale of the conflict would grow uncontrollably. This full-scale conflict scenario could become one of the most dangerous international crises of the 21st century. HMS Queen Elizabeth's cutting-edge technology gives NATO a crucial advantage in this conflict. The carrier's F-35B Lightning jets are among the most advanced in the world, with stealth capabilities, networked targeting systems, and precision weapons that allow them to strike from a distance without being detected. The ship itself is equipped with advanced missile defense systems like Sea Scepter and Phalanx, designed to intercept incoming missiles and aircraft, which would be critical in a high-intensity conflict where China and Russia could launch coordinated missile attacks. The Royal Navy's use of drones and satellite-based intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, or ISR systems, would provide them with real-time data on enemy movements. This technological edge would allow HMS Queen Elizabeth to strike first in many situations, potentially neutralizing key threats before they can escalate. This would have devastating effects on the global economy, triggering a worldwide crisis as energy supplies, goods, and resources struggle to move through the contested waters. Whether this conflict would be a short, intense exchange or a drawn-out war depends on how quickly the situation escalates. If the conflict is swift, lasting only weeks or months, NATO's superior technology and air dominance could force China and Russia to retreat, especially with the combined efforts of US and Japanese forces. A decisive early strike by HMS Queen Elizabeth's F-35s could neutralize key threats, leading to a quick resolution. However, if the war dragged on, China's vast navy and sheer manpower could overwhelm NATO's smaller forces. In a prolonged conflict, NATO would need significant reinforcements from the US and European nations, turning the Indo Pacific into a multi-year war zone. The longer the conflict lasts, the more likely it is that global alliances will shift, economies will suffer, and civilian populations will face devastating consequences. While the prospect of full-scale war remains low, the risk of escalation is real. So, do you think we should start fearing this scenario? Or is the recent encounter just a thing of the past now? Let us know what you think in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more videos about the Navy. Click on the next video, and I'll see you there.